What's going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick, Tayler Kyles here for CLNS Media outside of Gillette Stadium on the practice fields as the Patriots just wrapped up day 7 of their 2024 training camp. Taylor, let's talk about the defense today, but before we do, we're powered by Game Time. Head over to Game Time, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. The defense, Taylor, first and foremost, some housekeeping notes. Matthew Judon returns today.
Yes.
After some contract squabbles, a social media post, him saying that the team is trying to make him look bad. Gerard Mayo comes out before practice and says that he and Matthew Judon have spoken and that they're on good terms, and he expected Judon to be out here and participate, and that's exactly what he did. Although they weren't in pads, Judon was out here in shells and a helmet and participated throughout the entire session. He didn't come out of the entrance like he normally does. He didn't sign autographs for fans. He didn't do any of the extracurricular stuff we're used to seeing Matthew Judon do, but he comes out here and he participates. So what do you make of it? Do you think that gives any hope towards the fact that they might be able to come to a deal soon?
I think it definitely does, because if you've been watching our content covering Matthew Judon, I didn't know how this was going to get resolved, just because the way that things were handled, you know, the being on the field, being asked to leave and being animated, then coming back, having another discussion with Elliot Wolf and Matt Groh, and then leaving again, then not even being in the building during the next practice. Those just seemed like the ingredients for something that was just going to continue to bubble up and turn into a real problem. I think it was huge for this regime, you know, young regime where they're still trying to make their mark, to have settled 2 hold-ins, you know, relatively. Now, Matt Judon would take the first rep in team drills, then wouldn't take any more. Don't want to look too much into that, because, again, it seemed like he was showing contrition. He was here with his helmet. He was in the training center early, participated with position drills, was active during team drills, and wasn't making himself a distraction. I think that was the biggest thing. It seems like behind the scenes they were saying, hey, you know, I don't want to speculate on whether they're closer to a deal or what this means in that regard, but at least I think there's stability, and it felt like that was starting to slip. So seeing that, I think, is a really great sign. Also, Davon Godchaux, will speak more on him, but the fact that they got something done with him, these could have been 2, maybe not Godchaux as much. I think Judon is like a different level considering where it got, but the fact that they did have these 2 hold-in situations where it seems like we'll see what happens with Judon, but they at least quieted them down and kept them relatively low-key after a rough start with Matthew Judon. You know, again, encouraging signs, I think, for this regime, but still TBD.
Yeah, let's touch on Davon Godchaux. He came out and spoke to us after practice today, of course, after signing a 2-year extension yesterday with the team with a lot more guaranteed money, 16.5 total, I believe it is. He said that he kind of made it seem like he didn't get all that he wanted.
That was, I feel like from his tone, that was very clear.
Definitely. He said, you know, I got more money, and basically that his wife told him that sometimes you don't always get what you want, but be grateful for what you do. Gets a little bit of a pay bump, but I think he wanted a little more. Ultimately, they get that across the finish line with Drew Rosenhaus. So what do you make of that, Taylor? What do you think of what he had to say as well after practice? Because, again, it sounded like he didn't really get what he wanted.
Yeah, I mean, he got his guarantees. I think the bottom line is that was what he was looking for. He mentioned it repeatedly when he spoke to us before the situation had gotten itself or worked out. I don't want to say it worked itself out necessarily. But yeah, he definitely didn't sound, because we saw that Grover Stewart felt like the baseline for what he wanted, or at least his goal, and he got less guaranteed money than Grover Stewart did. They're around the same age. Grover Stewart gives you a little bit more pass rush. I think at the end of the day, that's probably where the line was, where they were saying, hey, you're not giving us anything in terms of getting after the quarterback, so you're going to have to take a little bit less than you probably want. I'm just glad it got settled. And it continues a theme where with these contracts, you could maybe quibble with Hunter Henry, maybe quibble with Kyle Duggar, but this team isn't giving out these massive deals where they're making guys the highest paid at their positions. For the most part, they've gotten really good bargains. So, again, with Davon Godchaux, because he's so limited, I think that the value on the deal was pretty good. Some people may think he was overpaid considering what his role is, but I also think there's something to be said for this scheme and the fact that without Godchaux, you're relying on 2 people who haven't really proven themselves as starters.
You mentioned those sort of bargain deals with the contracts. One of those, of course, Jabril Peppers, who was out here and returned to practice after missing the other day with an injury. But then he leaves early, goes down to the conditioning field, and we don't see him really participate for much of the session. Marcus Jones leaves practice today, the cornerback, number 25, and then Marte Mapu doesn't show up to practice. He comes out later on in just a jersey, no helmet. So a lot of banged up guys in the secondary, Taylor. Speaking of bargain deals the Patriots made this offseason, Jabril Peppers signs a deal which everyone would assume was under his market value. He comes back to practice today after leaving the other day with what looked to be an injury, comes out here through stretch, no helmet on, then leaves to the conditioning field and comes back and hangs out, but was a solid participant today. Also, Marte Mapu doesn't show up for stretch. He comes out later on, again, no helmet. That's probably his like 4th, 5th, or even 6th day in a row where he hasn't done much. Marcus Jones comes in, has a solid day, but then leaves the field later on with an injury. And then Sean Wade, number 26, is out here in a non-contact red jersey. So plenty of banged up defenders in that defensive backfield in the secondary. How do they improve on this? And with the guys who have come in to replace them, you're talking Marcellus Dial, Alex Austin. What have you seen from them in light of the other guys missing some time?
So actually, Marcellus Dial, that one jumped out to me because he got a lot of run with the top defense, the top and second, but like run next to or across from Christian Gonzalez.
Yes.
Obviously, that's mostly been Alex Austin and Marco Wilson, so kind of similar to the tackle position. That seems like it truly is a competition. Hard to know just how much Shaun Wade's injury impacted that, but he was getting some of these snaps before Wade actually left the field, and then with Marcus Jones, once he was out, we saw Jonathan Jones in the slot with Gonzalez and Marcellus Dial outside. So it's nice to have, some level of depth. It's obviously hard to tell, though, because there's no pads.
Right.
It was an intense day because they were in the red zone and it's hot and all that. Yep. But you don't want to jump to any conclusions. But still, cool to see the 7th-round pick in Marcellus Dial get some quality snaps today. Yeah,
for sure. You could kind of they're definitely testing the depth in the defensive backfield with all the injuries rounding up. But you're right. You bring in Marcellus Dial. He comes in, plays pretty well. So definitely promising for a room in the cornerbacks. Last year, you remember Jack Jones and Christian Gonzalez leaves, and all of a sudden it was like basically a house of cards falling down. You have to bring in Marco Wilson and Alex Austin and things like that. So they get tested today for sure. We also got an update from head coach Jerod Mayo before practice about the status of defensive tackle Christian Barmore, who has been out since Sunday after being diagnosed with blood clots at Mass General Brigham. What did you make of what he said about the defensive tackle and where he's at in his recovery?
Yeah, so we all kind of figured this might be the case considering David Andrews, when he dealt with blood clots in 2019, had to miss the entire season. Jerod Mayo did say they didn't know if Barmore was even going to return this season. So once again, a massive hole on the defensive line, someone who really can't be replaced by one or any number of players on his own. And we also heard from Jerod Mayo in terms of whether or not Christian Barmore's situation had anything to do with Davon Godchaux's contract. And he mentioned, as I've been saying, that they are two different players who play different roles, and there wasn't much of an overlap there. I think, in the back of your head, obviously, you do want the quality on the defensive line.
You want better players in the middle of the field.
Right, and losing two starters would have been huge, but yeah, it didn't sound like anything that happened with Barmore, had a part in Davon Godchaux's contract. And then David Andrews, just to kind of put a bow on this, also spoke about how different his and Christian Barmore's situation could potentially be because it's situation by situation, but that he was looking forward to speaking with Christian about his status.
That's the defensive report here on Patriots Press Pass. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe here on YouTube, and check out all of our written work at CLNSmedia.com.
Make sure to subscribe to Patriots Press Pass for all your Patriots news and updates on YouTube, and for all our written work, make sure you check out CLNSmedia.com.